It's 28, right?
Yep.
Welcome to episode 28 of Jabber Jawn. Tonight we discuss the riddles of the universe using only letter squares from a thrift store Scrabble game, and all words used must be found on the online Urban Slang Dictionary. This will be an episode your kids won't want to miss. Also, we will talk about a bird and a song will be sung, so on your drive home you can spread the good cheer singing at the top of your beautiful voice. Due to label warnings and 4 out of 5 doctors' recommendations, this show may not be suitable for those with high blood pressure or the illness I can't think of the word for, where you fall asleep with no warning. But don't worry, we are on YouTube and Facebook, so if you do fall asleep you can put a nickel on the jukebox and listen to the show again. Spread good cheer, and remember, with the 4th of July right around the corner, this is a perfect opportunity to celebrate all our differences and unique qualities that make the US of A such a wonderful smorgasbord of options and choices. Only in America can someone like me be found weekly speaking into a clip on microphone which sporadically sends hundreds of volts of electric shock through my system each time I voice an opinion Steven or Nathan don't agree with. But they let me say what I want, and for that I salute them. Give peace a chance, as Yoko still says.
Let's see if you're going upstairs. I could use a home to drink. Anything cold?
You guys hold her down. You ready? I'm just gonna. We're already live.
We're
Intro,
already-
and then I'll run this.
Now.
No, we're good. Welcome to the show, everybody. Yes, I'm Nathan Moore. This is Steve Moore. This is Kyle Hogg. You're watching Jabber Jawn, episode 28. We are Sans' producer tonight. She is up there dealing with a family member that's caught up in the rigmarole of the air traffic situation that's unfolding all over the country, where all thousands of planes have been. She was supposed to get in Monday night and is just getting in today, and it's just been one terrible story after the next. So, but she is back home safely. So now we just have 2 more planes that have to come in tomorrow, and we'll all be back together again. It's been a whole thing, but we're here, and because we don't have her, there's a few loose ends dangling here. I'll be right back. This is Steve Moore, Kyle Hogg. They're all yours, and I'll make sure that we're live while I get you a glass of water. Be right back.
All right. Hey there.
Hey, Steve, how you doing?
Well, I'm all right. What you been doing?
I feel naked without Nathan here.
Well, you look almost naked. You got a little bit of clothes on, but that's not a sight I'm thinking about. I'm wanting to see. But let's move on.
It's time to talk about the bird, I think.
No, we're not doing the bird yet.
I hope y'all noticed he has a new pipe today.
I got a new pipe today at the Stanton Cigar Store. They also sell pipes, and the gentleman there was very gentlemanly and fixed me right up, and I'm very happy to have it. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
I should have mentioned that a long time
No,
ago.
I should have.
That's
Trying to put it off.
Talking of the local things we do, the pipe shop is a very wonderful local Stanton.
Yeah, this fits into our new advertising plan, where we don't seek advertising, we give advertising.
That's exactly.
And then if they want to give anything to us back, like another pipe, they could do it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, but we don't take any money. That's part of our statement, is that money's not good.
Right.
Yep.
Wow, I didn't know y'all must have
Wait,
decided this on your own.
He just took it an extra step, didn't he? He just added that bit at the end.
I just made
thought
that
he'd sneak it
up.
past
I
us.
just made that up. If they want to give us money, we ought to take it just to make them feel better.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a good model, though. I've been doing that for years, just creating commercials. Even when I was doing the Hippie Fiasco show, I would make commercials for businesses and stuff that I loved, and never even talked to them about it. They might not even know they had commercials on a TV show on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
That's cool. I like that idea.
Of course, they might not want to be associated with me.
Well,
That's probably why I
there's
didn't.
that. Or you might know they don't want to and not like them and do it on purpose to attack them. So it can get complicated pretty quickly.
I didn't know you knew Nathan. Nathan who? The Taos Home thing started that way, and that became a great relationship.
Well, there you go.
That was sort of, I mean, I'm stretching the truth a little bit here. I never have done it for people I think that weren't in love with the whole thing, but they were fans that have this great company out in New Mexico that creates hot sauce. They grow all the chilies, and they have this wonderful farm, Walking Trout Farm in Taos, New Mexico. And they've been a fan of my music for years, and just sent me out of the blue a gift package of a variety of their hot sauces. And I got a box one day and I opened it up and it was all these amazing hot sauces. So I made a commercial, wrote a theme song for Taos Home, Make It Stop, hot sauce. And wrote a song and made an animation, animated the bottles and stuff, had a little dog dancing with the hot sauce, and showed it on my show. Well, a few months later, we started a game show called OK Google It. You ever watched any of those?
Yeah.
This was during the pandemic, so it was all Zoom calls and stuff. But Dad would come up with 20 questions, and he would be on the Zoom, and I would be there co-hosting, and Kethra was upstairs keeping score, and he would read a question, and then the first right answer in the chat would get the point, and Kethra would keep score, and whoever had the most points at the end of the show would get a free bottle of Taos Home hot sauce that those guys would send out, and it was a great relationship. It was really fun. Okay, Google it.
They
days.
were great. They sent me a nice care package one.
All right, you probably still have your hat or something, hoodie or a hat or both.
It was a hat, yeah.
I just used some. I made some.
We gave you some.
I made some baked chicken. I think it was Monday or Tuesday, and put some of that on. It was delicious.
Remember which flavor we gave you? Was it green or red?
No, it was you gave me two. It was the one that's got a sort of a name. I wouldn't. Oh my gosh, I should know. I've killed almost one bottle you gave me. Of course, I can't think of the name of it.
Good stuff, huh?
Got a good little kick to it. It was good on the chicken.
Taos Home. Make it stop.
Do they do trout too, or is that?
No, there's some legend in New Mexico in the around where they live, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I think that trout wound up in ponds that was inexplicable. Like, how are there? There's no rivers they could have traveled to get there or whatever. So over the centuries, the legend of the walking trout sprung up. Just imagine them on their little back fins traversing the desert, looking for a body of water. A high desert of New Mexico.
I still find it hard to believe that story you told us about the eels coming from the Bermuda Triangle area, Middle River
right there
and
in Middle
stuff.
River right now.
I wonder if that's true. When was the last time we've heard a report of someone catching an eel out there?
It's a good question. I'd like to.
We should research that.
Call the game commission and ask them.
This is the one activity that could finally be up my alley, because I tell you what, everything that everybody does apparently is, you fish eels in the middle of the night. So this is I could spearhead. This is the one activity I could spearhead. I could lead. I could be our anchor. But
I could either be a
isn't that true? You
professional.
don't catch them during the day, right?
Right. They hide under the rocks and things.
I know y'all scared me to go in the Middle River anymore now, thinking there's all those eels hidden in there.
It was shocking. I went most of my life all my life up until I found out that having no idea there was these giant eels in the Middle River.
Creeps me out.
Like, you just out there frolicking around all your life, and then one night someone pulls this thing, and it's like a Loch Ness monster in these parts. Did you always know they were there?
No, no,
Do you remember?
not till I moved out there and people told me that they were out there, and
To watch
then
out
we,
for 'em.
we started catching them.
Do you remember the first time you caught one?
Not really.
A friend of mine just went on a cruise, some beautiful cruise place, and it was pure blue water and stuff. And the guy was like a guy like 100 yards away was throwing Cheerios out in the water, and the fish were coming up and eating it. And his family went in, and he thought he was having a good time. Well, he didn't think he was having a good time. He was having a good time, but he thought, well, I'll just hang out here, just by myself. He laid on his back. He thought he was being attacked. A fish came and thought his nipple was a Cheerio, and bit his nipple and almost ripped it off and was bleeding.
Goodness.
I was like, I've never heard anybody being attacked by a fish before and bitten.
What's it called when you chum?
Chum, yeah.
When you throw out. Apparently,
Bloody.
it's unethical or something. I don't know if it's illegal, but there's an ethic about that, right? The
Well,
idea is
it depends on what you're fishing for.
you throw out like some of the bait that doesn't have a hook in it, and then they get all relaxed.
That's a no-no if you're trout fishing.
It is.
That's wrong.
Why is that wrong?
Well,
You're trying to catch a
it's-
fish.
It's not fair. So you could be throwing a stick of dynamite in there
Right,
too.
right. That
Did you ever do
does
that?
seem unfair.
No,
He couldn't find the
That's
dynamite.
what I was
we
thinking.
don't. They
He
don't.
was asking around.
I'm on a list that they don't sell dynamite to. They just look at you in the stores and no, we don't sell dynamite to people like you. And then you walk away. But no, I don't.
Used to hit up all the construction sites at night, climbing over the fence. They got any dynamite in
Let's
here?
not talk about that. That was a long time ago.
But still, why is chumming unethical?
Well, it's just not.
You're taking advantage.
I mean, there's just
yeah.
like game. There was rules of the game. And
Right.
the game. When you chum, you're telling the fish that everything's off. We're not playing anymore. So they start running around grabbing
Oh,
everything.
right.
So they're not conscious of making decisions like they would be if you had one piece of corn with a hook on it and they look at it and say, "Oh, I see that hook there. I'm not going to bite that."
Right,
That's the game. But
right.
if you're chumming and they just are grabbing everything, it's just a different game.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, can chum be anything? When I think of chum, I think of some bloody piece of meat, but it could be anything.
That would be like for
Okay.
fish in the ocean because you want to get the blood distributed.
Right.
So, and you would attract sharks and things like that. But chumming around here, you're just throwing a handful of corn,
Oh, wow.
whatever bait you're using, you
Right.
just throw a handful of it out, and they all come around. See, that's especially if you're fishing for stock trout because they're already schooled up. So you throw that big handful of corn in, and it's like they're at the trout hatchery. They're all going up there biting and biting, and then it makes it real easy to catch them.
Right. And you're sort of maybe filling. Do they get full? Like for other fishermen that are out there, like you.
That's possible, but I don't think that's a real. I mean, I think they'll eat till they drop.
Right.
They eat
Just
well.
like any of us.
Just like me. Now, you never done that thing where you go in the water and like reach under a rock and put your hand down the fish's
Canoodling.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to canoodle all
What?
the time.
Wait. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you just reach over there and grab that tail and pull it out, or actually, it's better to grab them by the jaw. And,
That's what I've seen. Like you get them like almost in the mouth. It looks like
Yeah.
and you take it out.
yeah,
How
You
do
catch
do,
it in your bare hand.
How do you do that?
catfish hide up under the rocks and things. In the south, where there's it's more clay than it is rock. They have these little tunnels back in there.
Oh wow.
You know where they are, so you can just go canoodle.
Now, how did you have any idea where that name came from?
No, I don't. And I've never done it either. I'm pretending I'm a
Okay.
canoodler.
I've seen videos of it.
I've seen videos and I've read about it, and it's a good southern pastime.
Definition of canoodle: to caress, pet, feel up, or make love.
What? Well, for once, we're both speechless. We're just sitting here.
Or to cajole or persuade. So I guess maybe that.
Well,
No,
maybe it's a different.
Or a cuddle, hug, or caress.
Oh, maybe
No,
that's another word.
No, I think it is. You're right. Put fish canoodling.
Catfish.
Well, I don't know if he's that advanced. He would be defining two words. It's not a Google search. It's Percy on the Discord.
That's the stuff that happens when you get caught saying you're a canoodler and you're not.
Yeah, I tell you, you gotta watch that.
But now that you mention it, according to your definition, I'm definitely a canoodler.
But just be careful who you ask if they want to canoodle with you.
Well, I've tried to do that all my life.
The police come. What are you kids doing out there? We're just canoodling in the back of the car.
I don't know why it was so easy for me to say canoodling when you said that, if it wasn't
I
true.
think, it sounded.
I think it is a variation.
You're right there with it.
Yeah.
Well, words change meaning over time.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody say they were canoodling with their partner, though.
No.
Yeah.
People have been fishing.
I've never heard.
People have been fishing with their partner.
When I was 19, I was on the front porch on a swing, and there was a young lady there that was in high school with me, and we were canoodling. And one of her parents yelled us in, said, "What are y'all doing out there?" And I said, "Canoodling." But I thought we were talking about catfish. So I really could have gotten in trouble.
They're like, well, at least he's honest.
At least
Good
we'll have
kid.
dinner tonight if he catches anything.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd like to do more research.
Kazookeeper, catfish noodling slithered into canoodling sometime along the journey. That's our first chat of the show.
Woo, that's
I'll
beautiful.
tell you what, poetry is happening.
That was poetry.
Yeah, good to see you, buddy.
Who was that?
Josh Sadler.
Josh.
The
Good job,
Kazookeeper.
Chad. Oh, well, read it again.
Catfish noodling slithered into canoodling sometime along the journey.
I like that.
It's a new moniker for our
We
show.
got quality people out there listening.
I'm just glad it's working. I was a little nervous. We don't have our producer today, and we're winging it here on our own.
So what was it like dating back in the day? Was it a lot stricter? Did fathers have a tight control over their daughters?
Yeah.
Not that- Ask the parents permission to ask their daughter out.
Oh, I didn't do a whole lot of dating, I had a serious, I'd try to date somebody seriously so I wouldn't have to not know what I was doing on for the weekend. And so I didn't have a whole lot of different experiences with different parents or anything.
Yeah, you and Mom married young, too, by today's standards.
Yeah, well, yeah, I started dating her my junior year. And
But did you have to go ask the father, like meet him the first time you picked her up or anything?
I had to meet him, yeah.
And what would you wear? Would you dress up or what?
I just wore what I was going to wear that night to take her out. I didn't dress for him.
I'll be right back. I gotta go change it.
He was more of a hard hat construction guy, no nonsense gentleman.
I never knew him.
I didn't know him very well.
And would you sit down and chit chat a little bit so he could find out your intentions, or you would
No, he just came out and looked me over and walked back in.
beat it?
I've never heard much about this grandfather of mine at all. You got anything else?
I
for me?
didn't know him that well.
Do you remember when he passed away? Was I alive? Did I ever meet him?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Nope.
Do you remember his name?
Alton.
Alton.
So what year was that when you first met him?
Oh, I'd say about 65,
Oh wow.
64,
Amazing.
65.
So the kids dress up then? If you were on a date, you didn't just wear jeans and a T-shirt, did you?
No, you would wear a shirt and slacks or
yeah.
regular old pants, not blue jeans.
Did you have a car?
Yep, I had a little Volkswagen Bug.
You had a Bug?
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't know you had a Bug.
oh yeah,
That was my first car.
yeah,
Same one. He sold it to you.
probably the same one.
I doubt it.
Yeah, it was,
That's funny,
it
I
was
didn't-
famous for me. It was like going into Hillcrest was at the top of these three hills, and you never went up the left one because there was a stop sign at the top of it.
All right.
And you got that little. There's no way I could change
Right.
gears and not run it into the middle of the road and
Right.
it stops. So you come up the long way, and people would start driving up to the other way. And I'd say, "You can't go this way. Nobody's ever gone this way before." Oh, you've got an automatic.
Do you remember how much? Do you remember how much you paid for the VW back then?
No,
Like
it was
hundred.
hundreds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was used.
Mine was hundreds
It
too.
was. It was the second.
One thing you can always count on a used VW, it's going to cost you a couple $100.
You're right. It's good. It's a good deal. I don't think it's the case anymore. But even my friend Joe West, a great songwriter out in New Mexico, has a song called "$300 Car." This $300 car. It's not going to get me too far from here. But that was about. You used to be able to get a car for
Oh yeah.
less than $500. That would run, even in my day.
Yeah.
That is not the case these days. It is.
Well, it's like everything else. Cars aren't made to last anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a disposable society
Mm-hmm.
because that means more money for the people that make it. But, the old guys that could work on a car, they can still get a 60, 70 car engine going.
Right.
Because they weren't that complex. They weren't computerized and everything. Now, there's not much you can do because everything's computerized.
Right. I feel like we've talked about this before, but it's a great conversation because I feel like that's the one thing that digital technology has done to so many things is taking it away from us in terms of repairing it and having a relationship with it.
I agree.
On so many things are like that. Almost everything. Even your coffee maker probably has a computer chip in it.
Yep.
Or your refrigerator, or
Right.
any technology, and it's a little heartbreaking to a certain extent.
We've lost quality.
Mm-hmm.
And we've
And a relationship with these things.
You
Get
got-
under the
yeah.
hood and take it apart. You could take anything apart and put it back together if you were
Right.
that kind of person.
Right.
Not with the computers. That's.
no.
I'm sure there's somebody out there. I have a whole conspiracy theory about the whole computer technology. I'm not sure it's human in origin. But
What's your theory?
I don't know. I think it's extraterrestrial in some way. I think I've never met a human being that could make a computer or really fix one. Like they can swap out the board, the motherboard or whatever. But where these motherboards come from, I don't know. I've just never met a human being that could do it.
Right.
I know they must exist. Who are these people that make these things? Have you ever met one?
Well, I think they're all in California,
You think?
and I don't go there.
That's what they say. That's what they
I
say.
think a lot of them are in California.
That
But
can make a computer?
now they can be anywhere. There's a lot of them in China.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about that.
Now, what do you think about these? What is that 3D imaging stuff that makes things like guns that actually work and all that?
I want one of those so bad. A 3D printer.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I've
want
I've
one.
heard like just crazy. It's like you make like tennis shoes, or you can make whatever you want out of it.
How can you do that? I don't get it.
I don't know.
Wait, which part don't you get?
Making tennis shoes holographically.
Well, what it does is like it's a machine. It's a printer basically. But what it does is it discharges something that comes out as like a oozy, liquidy thing, and then it solidifies. It hardens. But it can work in a three-dimensional space. So this little dispenser comes down and it's just dispensing the ooze on top of it, and it'll build it up. And like anything that you put in there can be this guy was made on a 3D printer. There's one in Stanton at one of those creative. Oh, it's not focused.
Was that the artist in Stanton that does his Robot of the Month Club thing?
Oh, it's not focusing on it. There you go. There's a blurry image of it. Check that out.
Yeah, there's an artist in Stanton that does paint or drawings and stuff, but he creates like little robots, drawings of robots, and then he 3D images them and makes them like little figurines and stuff. Of course, I can't think of his name right now.
Oh, now we're all blurry. Oh, goodness. I got it. I'll fix it.
Yeah, so like the machine just saw a picture of that, or not a picture. It has to be a real. Can it be a picture? Or it has to be a real object.
You have to know how to put in the three-dimensional diagram for it.
Now, what's going to keep that from like 20 years now? We'll all have one of those. We won't have to buy anything.
Right.
You want it, you make it yourself.
Every house will have a 3D printer in there. And then you just be paying for designs. Download it. Is that still blurry? So that was made on one of those printers in someone's house. Or at the Stanton Creative Place. They have one in, what's the place called in Stanton that you can go in? They have machines that you can use for woodworking, or they have a 3D printer.
Oh my God.
Have you heard of this?
What could you make with it? What would you make with a 3D printer that you?
Are you talking about the one that was down there
Well,
by the railroad tracks? Or yeah, I can't think of the name of it. Yeah.
I mean, you can pretty much make anything.
Yeah,
You can make a pipe. Although the material, I don't know if
That's
it would
what I don't
withstand
get.
that.
I don't get what the material is.
But you can make a bowl. Yeah, what is this material called?
Play-Doh.
it's some kind of clay-like thing.
Just think, we were so excited to make something that looked halfway decent out of Play-Doh. Now they can make an exact replica like you thought they paid $100 for it at the store. Look what I made, Mom. What is it? It's a snowman. You don't recognize it? Made out of, oh, that's great, son. Go give it to your dad. He might be able to do something with it. Put it in the shed. We'll keep it forever.
So to my computers are made by aliens theory, Josh says, you didn't hang out at Radio Shack as a teen?
Yes, he did.
I did, very much so. I feel like that's not computer. That's not digital stuff. That was electronics. I mean, it was starting to get into some interesting territory towards the end of Radio Shack's run. But back in its heyday, I don't feel like that was the same thing. I feel like that was wires and electricity and stuff like that. That's all stuff that we could still take apart and put back together and understand and figure out. It's magic. I'm not saying it's not magic. You know what I've discovered the magic of, or rediscovered? There's a great documentary that Oliver Stone just did about the importance of us turning to nuclear power to save us from the climate crisis. And not only is today's version of a nuclear power plant way different than it used to be and amazing. I mean, they're now making it small enough that every home could have a little nuclear reactor.
Oh, wow.
And it's safe. Like it seems it's way safer than we feel like. I mean, we were trained emotionally for years and years and years. But, you know, the beginning of it, just the whole discovery of this and the science behind it. I don't know if you have any insight, but it just seems like a miracle. It's to get that much energy from such a little thing. It's like magic. And it's interesting that we've gotten so terrified of it that we maybe are missing the fact that we have found this magic that could power everything. You know,
well, it's the fears based on the unleashing of that power in
and it is
in
terrifying.
an uncontrolled way, and that's called a nuclear holocaust. And
right.
The threat of that, because of the weakness of our emotional people that are running these countries, still scary as ever.
Yeah, it is. And the combination of the nuclear holocaust fear and anxiety, which is understandable, and then Chernobyl and things like that, these terrible, with the power, it all just sort of got lumped in this one terrifying basket
Right.
where we're no longer sort of capable of seeing the potential of this being a safe, clean, miraculous miracle of uranium, and that's what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what can you tell me about that? There's a part of me that doesn't completely understand.
Well, I think it just boils down to the matter, whatever matter is, as you consider it in your brain. But a small amount of matter equates to a huge amount of energy.
And is that true for all matter?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just most matter is so stable. What's happening with uranium is you've got an imbalance. You've got way too many neutrons and protons in the same area. So they're not at equilibrium and there's no balance there. So they emit radiation and they change.
And radiation is what?
Well, it's a form of energy, if you want to look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you have a beta particle, which is a form, but then you have alpha particles, which are made up of matter, but they're still traveling in wavelengths and still traveling like energy. So they're either a very heavy energy or beta particles are very light matter. But at some point, the matter is converted into energy, but the matter, I simplify things in my brain because I have a limited amount of intelligence, and I look at matter like going in a circle, and if some way you break that cycle and it shoots out, then it's energy. But as long as it's in a circle, it's matter. And so there is a relationship. I was talking to somebody the other night about the fact that we need to consider, when we talk about death and dying and all that kind of stuff with the material world, we ought to think more in terms of energy. So, because obviously our matter, when we die, we just start decomposing and we're just molecules, and I don't care where you put my ashes, really. Symbolically, it's nice to put them out at Frank's Mill under the tree, but if it doesn't make there, it's not going to change anything. Mm-hmm. It's just some carbon atoms that used to hang out in my body. Like we replace our skin every 7 years, so it's not like we keep it in a receptacle. It's very, it's not
precious.
It's not
that's
that
the
big.
Old me.
It's just old. Yeah. Who is that? Well, that's me back in '65.
That was me on my first date.
Yep. But I was thinking that if you change the matter, but getting back to the nuclear thing, a little bit of matter converts to a large amount of energy, and that's what nuclear power does. It allows for that.
If you were to find uranium, what's it look like? Is it just like a rock?
Uranium looks exactly like a rock.
Is it glowing yellow or anything like that?
No,
It just looks like
you can't see it. It's just probably a shiny metal. I've never seen pure uranium, but it's a metal. It's a metal.
Oh, it's a metal.
Yeah.
But that's no danger itself, is it?
A Geiger counter would detect it, I think.
It would it's giving off radiation, so how much radiation depends on how big it was. Right. So the bigger it would be, the more it could cause you some harm. But what they're trying to do in a nuclear reactor is control that rate, so it doesn't get out of control. But they can control how much it's converting it all the time. And
is it true that am I understanding it right, that a nuclear explosion is from the splitting of an atom?
Well,
or is it millions of atoms?
It's not just one atom.
Okay.
it's thousands and thousands. And they break down, and they don't just break down. They'll break down into this one and this one, but both of those are radioactive. That's what they mean by radioactive fallout. When you have an explosion, you not only have that initial one, but you have all these particles up in the air that are also radioactive, that are at their own half-life are going to emit radiation themselves. So you don't just have a nuclear storm. That storm might last for years, and that's why Chernobyl and places like that are still dangerous, because there's still radiation there. And it gets into the soil, and you have radioactive soil, and that's,
Well, it's so weird. It's tied in with the fires in Canada. How something that far away can travel down here. Just imagine if that was radiation coming down this way.
And that could easily happen if you have a nuclear war. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly what will happen.
They could be, we're safe here in Virginia. I don't think so.
Right. Well,
Not as long as the wind's blowing.
Right.
You're going to get nuclear fallout.
Can you believe that that it's smoky here because of the fires in Canada? I mean, we're in Virginia, folks. I don't know if you know that. Here in Stanton, Virginia, it is hazy out there. You can feel it in your eyes.
Today, you could really notice it. I had a lot of days earlier last week, I couldn't really tell that much, but today was obvious. It should be a clear day. And
looking at the moon last night walking Percy was the first time I really saw it. It was like, whoa.
Yeah, driving to work this morning, it was almost like foggy.
It's so wild. What a thing.
So I have a suggestion here
Okay.
of where we might go. And I was thinking the other night, and what do I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't start off this discussion with this, but I will. What do Nathan Moore and Donald Trump have in common?
Oh, goodness.
A full beard.
Good hair. He doesn't have good hair. He has a head of hair.
What do they have in common?
He has funny hair.
Gosh.
It's not the orange face either. You're still pretty rosy cheeked.
37 indictments against him.
We just say what comes to mind, for better or worse.
Let's talk about how they learn. They both learn.
By
They have
touching the fire,
They have a similar way of learning.
putting their hand on a hot surface to.
Yeah, is the stove on? Oh, yes.
Wait a minute, I'm trying to figure out that's.
And actually, I got this from listening to your show Monday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So do the question again. What does Donald Trump and Nathan have in common?
In terms of their learning style. And I heard about it. I thought about it when I was listening to your
My news show.
Your
They get
news
stuff
show.
off
Early in the morning,
they get-
afternoon news every day, 3-ish.
They get stuff off the headlines.
Well, you're in the ballpark.
They focus on things that it's in the public eye, public fears, public interest.
Yep. Well,
You don't have any guesses? You're always
No,
comparing
I'm
yourself
just
to
so
Donald
excited
Trump.
for the answer. I do.
All right, so it has something to do with how they. Well,
Sorry, I'm just seeing if we're blurry. I'm multitasking here a little bit.
I wonder, does anybody have an answer out there?
so you were watching Early in the Morning, and that's when you just.
I
you
thought
of
about
it.
this issue.
They
I've
thought-
thought about it before.
They have a subject comes up, and they say the first thing that comes to their mind.
No, that's a good point, though. Could be.
Not you don't always do that, but for the show you do because you gotta
in general,
you
I've
gotta be
always
quick
said-
on your feet with the show.
Yeah.
They don't hold back what
Well,
they
then
say.
I'll ask.
Any guesses in the chat here?
Where's Steve going with this one?
Right.
They both like the kerdoodle or whatever that word was.
bet Kether would know where I'm going with this. It has to do with you asking me to borrow something the other day when you were at my house.
For your legal woes.
Still don't know. I'm trying to remember I can't even remember what I asked to borrow.
I know. Well, I'll ask you a question. How's To Kill a Mockingbird coming?
Oh, I haven't started it yet.
And that, gentlemen and ladies, is my point. Neither one of you read.
Right.
Think about it. If you think about it, and I think it would be an interesting discussion because you insinuated just a moment in passing that that people really aren't reading anymore.
All right. They're just
Which
pretending to read.
Which is something people will say that don't ever read. You don't have any data, because I know a lot of readers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my company of friends.
Well, your generation read.
Well, that's exactly right. So are you saying, but you know who's in my generation? Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump didn't learn by reading. He learns by the media.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you do.
Right.
The question is there's lots of questions there. Do you get a different view of reality from your perception of the world, getting it your way, as opposed to reading? Because I'm not here to defend reading as the way to do it.
Right.
Because when you're reading someone else's thoughts. And a lot of times when you're watching television, you're actually seeing the event happen and making up your own opinion of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not necessarily saying reading is the way to go.
Right.
I'm just saying that it's different. And the world is different for people that read about things versus people that never read about things or read very seldom.
Right.
But your impression of the world you live in doesn't come from the words you've read.
Mm-hmm. It's very true.
And with me, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And also, there's all kinds of things that are going on right now. Like, I'm finding that my library upstairs is even more valid now because I know I've read them, but I can't remember them. So I'm taking them down and reading them again, learning new things, because not only are the times different, I'm different.
Mm-hmm.
And the things I've already learned, and then I can apply it in a new way. And some things that were amazing to me, like reading a lot of the Zen stuff that I used to, Alan Watts and those characters out of the 70s when, I was trying to figure out the meaning of the universe, and I was reading all that philosophy. Now I go back and read it, and it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. I bet.
Sometimes they're just, you can see exactly what they were trying to do, and it's clear. And other times you're just saying that person was just full of shit, and they were full of shit then, and they're full of shit now. But that's my call, based on my experience.
I feel like the new generations, not only are they not reading, but just guessing, because I don't read myself, that the authors that are popular today are not very good authors.
Yeah, that's an
There's a couple of contemporary books I've glanced at that the quality of the writing is shockingly, obviously not very good.
Yeah, and
I'm not saying there's no good authors, because I know there has to be, but there is this trend in all directions away from books being an art form that is really engaged in a powerful way.
Well, people that write books are interesting. That's a whole different ball game right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was going to write up a thing one time about who ought to watch this show. And one of the groups of people that I was going to include, it was a long article, but one of the groups of people was budding novelists and writers, because what you need when you're writing a book are characters.
Right.
And like for me, when I read a novel and a novel's written by a man, and he's talking about all these women characters, I'm just amazed that he can make that in his world, in his life, in his mindset, he can create a woman's way of thinking, because I've never been able to figure it out.
I think about that all the time when I'm reading too. Like,
is this the guy's idea of what a woman should be like, or has he really met a woman like that? You just all these different questions about that person and who they are. Of course, in a woman writing about a man's the same thing. I mean, and we know everybody. But I think the only way you can write about a character, like how are you going to be coming from New York or California and write about a Southern white man? You can't do it, man. I've seen your shit.
You have to do some research.
It's terrible. You got to do some research. You got to know what's going on behind us, in front of us, and you don't do that. You just make that judgment call, and we're stupid, and you
caricature.
You make a caricature out of it.
Not a character.
Exactly. Exactly. So what you need as you study to a young novelist, you need to get out there and find some real people and talk to them. Well, here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. 3 interesting young white men.
and that also ties into Stanton. There's, I don't know, the place behind me that was Rass Floors for a while.
Yeah.
It's now called the Art Hive. A wonderful
I'm
thing.
intrigued by this.
It opens up Saturday.
I know. I'm excited.
And they're having a
exciting.
creative writing class.
Oh, they are.
Really?
We should all go down there and try to write like we're Northern gentlemen or women.
What's it going to be? Like
Well, I think the first day they're doing a Frida or whatever the painter. They're doing like to teach you how to paint some stuff like that. But I'm talking like off the top of my head, but they're having some kind of writing class coming up in the next couple of weeks. Not really a class, but you can go in and I don't think they're trying to teach you anything, but like just the opportunity to create and write.
I'm very curious because I walk by there every day and I've been waiting for it to open, and I have friends that have different arts.
Yeah.
And they might, and I think we ought to have a shelf. I was at Made today. I want to get a shelf there for Jawn and Nathan and Steve Moore.
Jawn needs some merchandise to stick on that shelf.
Well, yeah.
I can't wait.
Well, something when I was thinking about
Maybe
this,
we can find somebody at what's it called? The Hive?
the Art Hive.
The Art Hive.
Yeah, they're gonna have like you can sell stuff there.
There might be somebody, an artist there too, that can help us come up with some merchandise.
But when you were talking about
T-shirt,
today,
logo.
when you were talking about there's like a lot of bad writers today, and I've never thought about this before. I was wondering if maybe because we think there were better writers in the olden days, because all the crap is just gone. Nobody remembers it.
Oh, right.
Maybe
That's a great point.
100 years from now, all the crap written now will be gone. So they say, "Oh my God, they were
just
wonderful."
the best will survive time.
They were wonderful writers back in the 20s.
Oh, that's a great point.
But the other, I think, even more basic point for you is where are you getting your data? It's just like we were talking about the eels. Can you catch an eel out there? No, we haven't caught one. Well, I haven't fished for an eel in 15 years.
Right.
What data do I have? I don't have any data.
Right.
So I can't say that they're not catching eels out there. I'm saying I'm not, because I'm not fishing.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't say a whole lot about the quality of people's writing when you don't read.
Right. Right. No, I'm definitely out on a limb with that assertion.
Yeah.
But I still feel like there might be. I mean, get some. Have you read many contemporary authors to argue against me? Can you name some good ones?
I could come up with something, but nothing off the top of my head's popping up. But
Have you dipped into that book I gave you yet?
I have started it.
I thought that's beautiful.
I'm reading it. I'm reading 2 books now. I got into trouble the other day. I lied on Facebook accidentally. And I got called out. But I didn't actually get called. I called out myself. But I wrote a little thing about it's really getting bad when you get to page 102 and you realize, well, I've done that like 10 times in the last year, but I hadn't done it that day. So somebody asked me, what were you reading? And I didn't have an answer.
Now,
So I went over to the bookshelf and picked up a book I knew I'd read and started reading it. Sure enough, so now I'm reading Kafka on the Shore, which is another book that I know I read it in 2015, but I'm reading now and I don't remember anything about it. So I'm getting a whole lot of extra money for keeping those books because I'm getting just as much out of them now.
Now, do you keep a list of the books you've read?
No.
See, I've done that for like probably 20 years.
But, a lot of it, when I read them, I put them up on the shelf. So if they're on the shelf, I've probably read them.
And speaking about the Art Hive, it's on Spring Hill Road. So right across,
Looking forward to checking that out.
Right across from Queen City Brewery. Go get yourself a beer, then go do something creative.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of potential there.
Yeah.
I really would love to get inspired in the sense of being able to write from a character's perspective. I've always sucked at that, but it's so fascinating to me. I don't even know where to begin. But as a writer, as a songwriter, I would love to write songs from other people's perspectives. I feel like that would be like a whole new lease on writing for me.
I disagree with you on that point. I think you write from such a human level that every single person in the world can identify with it.
I know, but I always write from my own perspective.
But then we hear and put it into
right.
our
I'm not
twist
knocking
on
what
it.
I've done, but just in terms of going forth. And not being as
you know, portray somebody else in a song.
Just even as an exercise, I think it would be fascinating. I try to sit down and be like, today I'm going to write a song from another person's perspective.
Donald Trump.
And I'm stumped. I'm completely stumped. I don't know how to do it. It's like my whole process of writing is not that at all. It's all about just sort of opening the portal and letting it come through me as sort of a conduit of some kind of deeper inspiration. And I'm very proud of the songs I've written, but the idea of writing a song from another person's perspective is so intriguing to me and so hard for me to even begin that process. I feel like it's a whole, if I could tap into that, I would just be so excited as a writer to be able to have that ability on my palette.
Yeah, I've written some poetry where I was trying to be the female. I was trying to come from her perspective, and I think I've had some success, but I don't think I get it, on any high level.
Right.
Maybe for a moment, but never really felt like I knew what I was talking about. But because you don't want to sound fakey. You're trying to get a real feel for it. But that goes back to what I was saying about, just watching the way we talk and the way you get a feel for what we're thinking about. And we represent different ages and different lifestyles and different times, and you can make a character from it. You could use one. You could make 3 different characters, or you use a little bit here. But I think that's what you do when you're making a novel, writing a character. You take parts of them, people from what you've seen over your life, and you make a character from them. That's the advantage you have of fiction.
But it's like a lot of this stuff that you've played here. It's like, even though I'm listening to your words, like you had that one song about he was cooking some fish and don't mow the garden and all that stuff. And I know that's your point of view, but while I'm listening to it, my brain is also playing like memories of my father and my past. Almost at the exact same time, like I'm dropped into you've created like a space, this is what happened in my space, and I'm listening to it, but also almost simultaneously putting in your own thoughts and images and stuff, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've very intentionally tried to make that as possible to
Well, let me go back up just for a second and ask you personally. What's stopping you from reading that book? Because it's an easy read, and he's a good writer, and it's famous historically, and so there's a lot of good reasons why you ought to read it. But you have trouble picking up and reading that book.
It's true.
Do you have? Is it a physical thing, like a dyslexia? Is reading difficult for you?
It's sort of like practicing scales in music. If I sit down and try to practice scales like most musicians do, I'm 3 minutes in before I'm writing a song. I try to go do re mi fa sol la ti do re mi fa, and then I'm like do re do re do re do re do, and like I can't practice scales because I start writing immediately, and I can't stop that, and I can't cut it. So I feel that the same thing happens to me with books. I'll start reading it and it inspires me immediately. And I got to do something with that inspiration. I can't just cut off. Although I
eat
miss
a bagel.
that. I do love that inspiration. I miss it, and I want to do it. And it's definitely something I would like to get back into, because I used to read, not like an avid reader, not like you, but I used to. I mean, I devoured a lot of poets. Not a lot of novels, but a heck of a lot of poetry.
There you go.
And which is also more my style, because I could just read a poem, get inspired, and write something myself. Whereas a novel is such a commitment of time that it's just hard for me to stifle my own desire to create something. And I just really get so hung up on the micro, like a line, just a line. I'll read the same paragraph 5 times.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, if you
That might
reading,
be just part of a dyslexic thing or something like that. Like
Well,
I get so satisfied, too easily satisfied too. I'm like, oh my God, that's a great paragraph. And and I'm off and running.
you don't have a scanner where you can turn off that. You're looking too closely at it, where you really just kind of need to see it from a different distance, maybe. I don't know. But that's all very interesting, because it makes sense.
now, if you started reading that philosopher, the old time Titty Common or whatever his name was.
That was pretty quick. It was really large print and very short text.
So did you get anything from that, or what was that poetry or philosophy?
The Stoic philosopher book that I got. Yeah, it wasn't as interesting as I thought it was going to be. It seemed to be saying the same thing over and over again.
What was the guy's name again?
And I'm really bad too at that. Like, okay, I get it, and then yes, that's great. I love it. And, War and Peace. Few chapter or 2 in, I'm like, all right, I get it. That's awesome.
Well, that's what, because my dad didn't read till he was probably like 65 or something.
See, there's still hope for me.
And then he just fell in love with reading. But he liked to read like spy novels and detective stuff. But he would get so mad. He'd be like, I was like, how's the book? He goes, oh my God, there was a couple pages of action. And they had to describe what the buildings looked like and what the weather was like. I don't care about that. And he would just like skim through it to get to the act. He was like, he didn't.
Looking for dialogue again.
And like I read, and you probably do too, like you want to be put into a world, you want to know. My dad was like, just get to the action, But I was just so proud of him that he was reading, It was just weird the way different people get different things out of reading.
Right, different. I go for long periods and don't read at all. When I look around my library, I think I don't remember spending that much time reading books. I was pretty active, but somehow I did read. I don't know, because you don't read good when you're drinking. I was drinking a lot.
You're probably reading more than you realize.
Maybe I was hungover. Maybe I read good when I'm hungover. I don't know.
That's the word. I've couple times I've had a couple of drinks. Like, this would be a perfect day to read. And I just,
It's a perfect day for anything at this point. Yeah, I was just
It's a lot like exercise. like once you do it, you're so grateful. If I do go break a sweat or exercise, I'm so thankful for it. I'm so refreshed and renewed and inspired. And I feel the same way with reading. When I do finally sit down, I'll be so inspired by it and I'll enjoy it so much. I'll be like, why don't I do this all the time? But then the next day comes and I again don't exercise and don't read.
You get the spoons out.
But it's not because I'm, right. But there is that truth. I'm so entertained by myself.
Well,
I wonder,
is it DNA or is it upbringing? Where like some people like I'm sort of like you. If I have some spare time, or even if I have something I could need to do, I'll just like, fuck it, I'm going to read instead. But some people just want to sit and knit, or they go make something in the kitchen, or go build a birdhouse, or write a song. You think that's upbringing, or it's just in your own?
I think everybody has their own way of getting through the day,
Right.
and picking out the thing, and it's interesting because you play with words all day long, but you don't read them. Mm-hmm. I think that's curious to me. Mm-hmm. And I have an assignment for you.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yes.
Goodness.
I want you to read To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay,
that
was already on my to-do
No, but
list.
listen,
So you're not you're asterisking.
I'm asterisk.
You and me can both, because I haven't read it either. I pulled it out of my stack. I've never read it.
Well,
you have it. You have it too.
Yeah, but like I've had it for probably 30 years, but never got around to read it. And when y'all were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, I pulled it out, and I noticed Kethra had it over here. She said she had just read it, and then she asked me if you read it, and I felt bad. Like, no, it's on my stack, but I haven't gotten to it yet. So I'll
put it
move
at the top
it to
of your
the top.
stack because next week, because I haven't read it in 30 years, so and I probably remember the movie more than I do the book.
Hand me that book for a second. It's the top one right there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
She didn't write that many books. I got her
Look at
second book.
That's some
Wow,
OG.
man, I got the
You
old.
wrote his name in
got
the
the
book.
old
Is this from when
Crush
you were a
Magic
kid?
Marker.
That's the first copy I had. What does it say?
Just your name, but just the fact that you wrote your name inside the book is sort of.
Yeah, that's
Beautiful.
old. Yeah, that's the original copy that I had when I got it probably at a used bookstore.
The only.
Okay, you guys talk amongst yourselves. I have an assignment here.
Didn't the only other book she write, wasn't that published after she died, like 10 years ago or
I think
something?
so, and I have a copy.
I have a copy of that too. I never read
Yeah,
it.
I have a copy. I started it, but I don't think I read
I
it.
can't remember what it's even called.
I can't read these words. I'll definitely need some readers or something.
Well, they sell them at the store. I figured that. You want to try these? These are real strong.
I got mine right here.
Now, do you think the feel of a book has any? Is that for real? God, I think you're going
thing
into
is
outer
sweet.
space. No wonder you can't read if you got to put those things on to read all the time.
You see why I don't read?
I'm gonna go to the park and read a book. Everybody's staring at me for some reason. I don't know why.
I was reading. All the kids started teasing me. I don't.
Oh my God, that's embarrassing.
Kids are mean.
Jesus.
That's well said. Well said.
Is that from the Battlestar Galactica collection? What is
This
that
thing is
from?
sweet.
What in the world?
This is the best purchase I ever made in my life.
Catherine comes home, stop reading. I hate those glasses on you.
I think now we know why you don't read.
Reading is not sexy in this house.
My neck's starting to hurt from having to support it from these watching this. Oh my God. So when was Kill a Mockingbird? When was that published?
I don't know. He's got a book right there.
In the 40s or
No, I'm thinking 60s.
60s?
50s.
Josh says reading is a pretty modern human trait on the grand scale. It's actually more unnatural than natural historically.
Wow.
True. I would agree with that.
Observation.
Yeah. And it used to be just for the chosen few. You know, the priest, and they all knew the Latin and everything, and nobody else would know, and they could say what they wanted to say.
Secret handshakes. If you
Yeah.
read the book,
Yeah.
you know.
But yeah, reading, it can be such a gift to someone who's isolated in the world and you know needs to learn about the world. It's a good way.
Yes, especially fiction in interesting ways that are written from other perspectives, because you really get inside the world and mindset of other cultures, other people, I'm imagining. So I imagine. I'm guessing here.
It must be true.
It must be really good.
No, when I find a good book, it's something. It's something special. It's like magic happening. But my problem is, if I start a book, I can't. I never just put a book. I never say this is terrible.
You finish it.
Once I've started, I finish it. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I can barely get through this thing. You know,
Do you do that?
No, I can turn one down.
Yeah.
I can say, been there, done that. Sorry. You have to earn my respect page by page.
So what do you think, what's your opinion on the audiobook phenomenon?
Well, with my eyesight going, I'm a big fan.
Do you do that?
I don't yet, but I will as soon as I can't read anymore.
Do you think it's comparable, or is there?
Well, yes. I think a good example would be my sister when she comes up to visit from Virginia Beach. She's listening to a book the whole way up here. And I think that's a good way to get through that 3-hour drive. But yeah, it depends on your situation. I've just never been in a place where, I don't hear that good either. So,
Right.
I don't know.
Well, actually,
but yeah, but of course that just depends on the performance. If you get a good audio book, a good writer, and he reads his own book, you can get more.
Right.
Because you get the
That's interesting.
intonation that he's putting
That's
into
how
it.
he hears it in his head.
And that makes a difference. But that's the whole thing about reading is you're reading someone else's perspective, and if you don't share their worldview in some way, it's not. You can learn from it, but it's probably not as pleasurable. So.
It's got to be tough. Like, I agree that especially for someone that is a reader, that's a thing. But the idea that like somebody like Trump could read the right books now to inform his opinions on things is hard to imagine that you would know, especially like from a presidential perspective, like how many books are we talking about here, and who picks which books? Like, cause there's some books you don't want them reading, and there's some books you do. But who gets making those decisions is tough. Like the things that fascinate me, I don't even. Seems like such a iceberg of books that I probably should read that it's just overwhelming from that perspective.
Yeah. I've noticed that when you were saying that, I was thinking about me with the reading I'm doing, and one of the things you're seeing is that the book can be totally biased. Well, history books.
Famously.
I just,
written by the victor.
I think about, well, not around here. But, the interpretation of slavery and all that in the history books that I read when I was in school, had a slanted Southern perspective.
Right.
So a white Southern perspective.
Right.
It's inescapable now not to go back and see that. Just like today, everything's there's pointed a lot more toward African American things. It's distorted right now. We're talking about a pendulum. Yeah, the pendulum's over here right now, where it was over here when I was a kid in the white area. Now we're getting more and more of the black perspective on things. At a certain point, it's going to balance out, and we'll see how that goes. But that was I trusted those history books for just saying this is the way it really happened.
Right.
But that's not what I was getting.
Right.
I was getting a swayed perspective from people that were embarrassed about losing and a lot of other things.
I've always thought about that too, like just being fortunate enough to be from America, where we won the wars, we did all this stuff. I always wonder, like, what are the German kids reading in their history books? What are the German war movies look like? The American John Wayne, we always come out and win. Do they just show the few battles that they won? That's it, the war ended in 1946, we won that war. Like they never, or do they just show the country being just, I've always wondered, like, how we're just fortunate to be, at the end of the movie, we're all saluting, the flags going up, and
Well, look at our Vietnam movies.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's just weird from another perspective, like how
Right.
Yep, it's depends on who you're, if you won or lost and what side you were on and all those things. But
Yeah, everybody wants to be the hero in their own play.
exactly.
Talking about, you've probably read the book Confederacy of Dunces, haven't you?
I have to.
You read that?
Yes.
One of the best audio.
Have you?
I have it, and I don't know that I've read it.
I mean, it's a very humorous, but I don't remember, I didn't laugh out
I
loud
think
when I was reading
we've
it.
talked about this before, because I think I got it because you said
But there's an
something.
audio book of it that just, I listened to it going to work. I almost had to pull over on the side of that highway sometimes. I was laughing so hard. The guy read it so wonderfully. It just, it's like listening to like a comedy album almost.
That's a wonderful gift.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful gift.
Yeah.
If you can find that. And there are people that, when they read a book, they really do a good job. It's an
Yeah.
art form. in
Like a
itself.
storyteller, yeah.
And some authors aren't very good readers,
Right.
It's not equatable.
There was a part of me, even just last week, because I've been thinking the same thing. I've always thought this. I've always wanted to read more and exercise more and practice my scales. All these things that I know would be good for me. But I was wondering if one way I could maybe trick myself into reading more is if I tried to create audiobooks. Because then I would be using my creative stuff and but then I did an audiobook for Kethra once because she loves audiobooks, and I read an entire novel.
What?
And recorded it and gave it to her on CDs.
What was the name of that novel?
It was Mr. Vertigo by Paul Auster.
I never heard it.
You can do that for the blind. They have you can go, Jane reads the Grail at night when they go to bed.
Cool.
I'm like, oh my God, you're the luckiest dude in the world. But I always ask her, do you look to see if he's asleep? She's like, yeah, I just check mine every once in a while, make sure he's still awake.
That's cool.
Well, since Catherine's not here, are we going to do the bird, and are we going to do a song? We got 16 minutes.
Oh, good producer.
All right.
Yeah, what's your bird this week?
Well, we'll do the word pretty quickly. It is Lucia, one of my granddaughters' favorite bird. And when I was leaving today, I opened the back door and there was one looking at me. And it's
You
called.
want to guess what it is?
He already told me.
Oh, you already know.
I get anxious and ask him when on the ride over.
Yeah, you can guess.
I can't remember the ones we've already done. Wren?
We've done the
We've
wren.
done the wren.
If
If it was looking at you, a robin.
Yeah, there he is. Isn't that a beautiful picture?
Oh, that is a beautiful picture. Look at that. Oh, the classic catching the earthworm.
Oh, yeah.
I was telling you, for some reason, I imagined the robin as being a happy bird.
This whole show might be a little blurry. I can't tell if we're in focus or not. It's not your eyes out there for those watching. It might actually be a little blurry.
If it is blurry, now you know what world I live in.
It's like the Mitch Hedberg joke about, he's like, why are all the pictures of Bigfoot blurry? He's like, maybe Bigfoot is actually blurry, which I find more horrifying. That there's this blurry monster out there roaming the woods. Those are great. Look at that. I've never seen a robin like that.
That's not a robin.
Oh, okay.
It's a bird that looks like a robin.
Why is it on the robin page?
Well, the robin, like varied thrush. That's a varied thrush, and it's common in the moist evergreen forest of western North America.
Wow.
And why its picture is there, just to say it's not a robin. But
Here's a robin, and here are birds that aren't robins.
but all of our fans probably are familiar with robins because they are one of the few birds that covers the whole country.
Oh, wow.
They do migrate in the winter. They're a berry and insect eater, not just fish and worms, but anything they can find. They eat on. They'll eat. But I do remember, the robin is in the thrush family, and thrushes are very, very unlike a lot of other birds. They like their privacy. They like wood thrushes and hermit thrushes are very hard to find. You have to go up in the woods and listen to them, and then sneak through the woods, and so they're very secretive. But robins obviously are very common everywhere. And I remember one day I was looking at my room door, and we'd had a test or something, and some of the kids had finished early, and one of the girls, Bethany, was looking out the window, and I went over and stood beside her, and we looked at the window together. And it had just rained, and there were all these robins out there. And one of them was pulling up a worm, just like that. We were just looking at. And
It seems like the robin's the one bird that definitely does that. I'm sure
yeah,
others do too.
It is one that sticks out. And I looked at her, and I was making small talk, and I said, "Now, Bethany, why do you think there are so many robins?" And she said, "I'm not sure why." She wanted to hear what I was thinking. I was thinking, yards. The answer is yards. As soon as you put a grass setting down and water it, you're going to attract fishing worms. And fishing worms, in the normal woods or under leaves and things, you can't find them. But in a yard where somebody's mowed it for you, and you can see the worm a lot better. So robins just said, "Oh my God, this is a yard. It just rained and the place is full of worms."
Right.
So they're attracted to the yard because of the worms, and they just love fishing worms. And that's just a theory. I mean,
That's a good
but it was
theory.
fun. We were just getting something to talk about, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about why one bird is common and another bird's not.
Right.
It basically goes back to habitat, food, or enemies. And so you analyze the food source, and they just found because yards took off all the way across the country.
Right.
As soon as you have a yard and water it, you have a perfect place for earthworms. You now have a perfect place for a robin. And they moved across the country with the yards.
Wow.
Sidebar. Visceral memories I'm having right now of you sending me out to catch earthworms as a kid. You ever caught earthworms? You go out right after it rains, and for some
Now, I wouldn't just send you out. We would go together most of the time.
right.
I mean, I would hold the thing, you had the quick hands, so I would hold the light on them.
It's so fun because
Well, you did it in
right
the
after a
yard?
rain, they, for whatever reason, come out of these holes in the ground.
Well, the reason is
And
sex.
Oh, really?
Yeah, remember we used to get a double?
Yeah, the doubles.
The doubles when the clitella.
But why after it rains?
Because it's moist and they can move in through the grass a lot easier. And the moisture in the ground, drives them up. It gives, they want to get out where there's more. It's too,
Are they drinking too?
No, well, they don't need to drink that. They're just absorbing it as they go along. But yeah,
It's such a trip because they come out of these holes in the ground. A lot of people might not even know this is true. These worms, after it rains, will come up out of this hole in the ground and lay on the grass. But part of their body is still in that hole and can suck back in like spaghetti being sucked into a mouth.
Well, and they have these bristles, setae, that hold on to the side, so they're holding. So when a robin, you've done it, when you grab them and if you just hold tight, if you pull too hard, you might break
it. Right.
But if you just hold tight, they get tired and they relax. And you can just slide them on out.
Oh, the visceral memories of that feeling, tactile.
That's exactly what the robin's doing.
You see this picture again. So that thing is holding on to its hole down there.
Yeah, it's a battle.
And it'll suck back in like spaghetti.
Yeah,
it looks like a robin.
You want to try to grab it next to the hole, not next to the, so you go in, and if you're too slow, it'll suck back in and get away from you. So you grab it, and then you don't pull too hard. Slowly, keep the pressure on, like he says. It gets tired and let's go, and then it's so satisfying.
Then it comes out and hits you in the face. Did you give him like a quarter for everyone he got, or just
night crawlers? Right.
I used to, night crawlers. I would later on when he got older, I would pay him per
worm.
Per worm.
Wow.
And I would use them the next day on a fish.
Now, I mean, does it make a difference if you pull it in half? Does the fish know that it's a? Oh, do you want it still alive?
Tell me, is it true that they have 5 hearts?
I think it's 7.
7
it's
hearts.
At least 5.
So if you break it in half, both halves can live.
No. You have if you have the worm, he has a clitellum, and that side is where the hearts are.
Ah.
So if you break him in half, you're fishing for bait, and they're too big because you're catching smaller fish. You break them in half. You use the bottom half first because that's the first part to die.
Uh-huh.
But the one that has the heart, you can put it back in and it'll live. So that was the rule. I've
been wrong about the 7 hearts. So it does have multiple hearts, but they're all in one spot. It doesn't do what I thought it did.
So does the fish look for a live worm? Is that why I got to keep it alive?
Yeah, they're attracted to the wiggling.
Oh.
Just like now that's an interesting thing about the robin is, what you'll see is that robin turn his eye to one side, and I read a thing not today but somewhere about, is the robin listening to the sound of the earthworm, or is he visually sighting on the movement of the earthworm? And the answer is yes. The answer, I think, is they do both.
Wow.
But they're mainly.
You can't hear an earthworm.
Yes, they can. The tests have shown, scientists have proven that they can have a good enough hearing to hear the earthworm.
Wow.
Like the earthworm moving, or like the heart's beating?
No, the movement of the earthworm in the ground.
Okay.
Rubbing against the side, I think.
Wow.
It's not the heartbeat. That wouldn't be enough.
Can you imagine the experiment they did to prove that theory?
Yeah, all of
little
that.
Blindfolded robins.
But they are using their eye to look for a movement, and they run up and then stop. That characteristic robin. They will shoot up, and then they stop and look, and they shoot up. They're looking for movement. They're trying to, like the mockingbird we talked about, they're trying to scare something up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And then they just concentrate. And if they think they see a worm, they hold their eye on it. And as soon as they see the right movement, they go in for the kill.
But a worm's got no defense, doesn't it? I
What's
guess
that?
it
sucks back in the hole.
Okay.
He goes back in the hole. Once he's in the hole, he's safe again.
Yeah, one wrong move.
Yeah.
No, do you think the worm, like, you think of if a robin just stood back from the hole, that the worm would know it was out there and stay in, or you think it would eventually come out?
If a worm knows a robin's out there, he's not going to come out.
Okay.
And that would be true with us too. You get one shot.
Right.
You're not going to wait for them
Oh.
to come back out. Once you scare them, they're done for the night.
Now, how does that work? Is that because worm's not thinking those things?
Sure he is.
He is. He's thinking, I'm not going back out there. That robin's still there.
That's Nathan.
Really,
I saw
it's
Nathan
not-
last time get my sister.
Right. Oh, here he comes. Like, I understand like a eye blinking reflexive retreat from anything that's there, but the idea that it's now in the hole thinking, is it instinctually not coming back out, or is it thoughtfully not coming back out?
I think instinctually would be the best way to think of it. I don't think there's a whole lot of decision making going on, but there are rudimentary yes and no's, and
Right.
experience would play a part, and I don't know. I don't know what goes on in an earthworm's mind.
Right. I'm going to write a song from that perspective.
Well, and read it in earthworm language. Right. That would be even more impressive.
He's going to write it just squirrely things all over the page.
Right.
Like, what is this?
What's this slimy
So,
mess?
is there anything else people want to know about a robin?
So what are the nests they have?
Their nests, they build in the spring. They're one of the earliest builders of nests in the spring. They'll have 2 or 3 broods a year. They build in a crotch of a tree or a branch, and early in the spring they'll use a pine tree because they don't have, later on after the deciduous trees have leaves, they'll build in those. But they build a pretty nice standard nest.
Signature
Twigs
eggs
on the
too,
outside.
right? Signature eggs too.
The navy, the robin blue egg.
Robin blue is
Yeah.
a color.
Light blue color.
Do the male and female look similar?
The male has a lot more red. When you see that brilliant red, that's a male, and establishing his maleness.
And the female is
Female has the same coloration, but it's much more subdued. It's not as bright. And it's more, but they look pretty much the same.
No, is there anything about the bird that inspired the song Rockin' Robin?
Yeah, maybe the head bob
Is that what it is?
could
Rockin'
be.
Robin.
tweet,
Yeah.
Rockin' Robin, tweet,
Yeah.
tweet.
Who did Rockin' Robin?
Elvis? No.
I just
No,
can't think of who it is,
it
man.
was a one-hitter.
Rockin' Robin.
Rockin'
One hit wonder.
Oh, I should know. I'm supposed to know that. Rockin' Robin.
Maybe it is the head.
Hey Heather, good to see you. Anna Blue, glad you're safe.
Somebody tell us who sang Rockin' Robin before we drive ourselves crazy.
Hi, Heather.
Google it if you know it. Or
Josh says, I had a robin's nest on the job site last week. I climbed up the ladder to see if there were eggs in the nest. I bent over to look in, and this tiny mouth got huge, and it was clear I was short a... Uh-oh. Your chat got cut off there. I remember that feeling, though, of climbing up to look in a nest to see if there were eggs, and there was little babies, and they all opened their mouths thinking I was the mom. I felt so bad. I felt so guilty. I didn't have anything for them.
Right. That is
you didn't chew up some food and put it in there for Somebody toss me a piece of bread.
He's out in the yard with his eye looking down. Bobby Day.
Is that your guess?
That's a guess.
Rockin' Robin, Bobby Day.
Oh, it is Bobby Day.
Did I get
there
that?
you
Yep. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Oh, that made me feel
You
good.
just got a free bottle of Talsum hot sauce.
Thank you so much.
Go down
I
and get
love
your free.
that hot
Go
sauce.
down and get your free pipe.
Yeah.
Go on down to Art
Bobby
Hives.
Day, where did that come from? I love that.
That was good.
I was empty.
So that was his one shot at fame.
I think
One-
that was
one
his
hit wonder.
One hit wonder.
He had his day of fame.
He tried Rockin' Wren and
Yeah.
didn't sell a
Yeah.
one.
Rockin' Eagle.
Gotta be another bird.
He was like Chubby Checker trying different types of twists.
Yeah.
You know?
Different types of birds.
One hit wonder. That's such an interesting. We'll save that for next week, but I feel like that's an interesting phenomenon on so many levels.
That's a term that I just like. That always bugs me.
One hit wonder.
Because it's to have one hit is an amazing thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to have a one-hit wonder is like you're only in the top 5% of the smartest people in the world.
Well, really the interesting thing about that whole discussion is the time that we're talking about. We're talking about the old Wild West then, when you could put out a 45.
Right.
I mean, you can't do that today.
Right.
You could have a one-hit wonder where a little podunk record company in Philadelphia says, "Oh yeah, we'll give you one shot here," and they actually do it, and it sounds good, and they sell 1 million copies,
Right.
and they're number 5 on the Billboard chart. And like a month ago, nobody'd ever heard of them.
Right.
And that was really happening.
Right.
It doesn't happen anymore.
I was just reading a little article about Neil Diamond, and he never, he just struggled along, like everybody does, and Bang Records signed him, and he put out 3 singles that were all hits, but nobody would want to do an album with him. They just thought he was like a singles guy, and so he couldn't get signed to a label. He just, they would say, we'll do a 45, and finally, he became like a superstar because somebody finally.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Bang Records. Well, do you remember what those initial ones were?
Oh my gosh.
Are they
Stuff you
songs
would
that all
know.
Sweet
Yeah.
Caroline had to be.
Yeah, that was like the second one.
one of the big ones. Yeah,
Elton John just played his last concert.
I saw you were talking about that.
I watched some of it. Boy, he sounded great. He was playing great. I guess he's going out on top. But
it probably
the thing that was
probably
amazing,
wasn't him.
right. The thing that was truly amazing is how for 2 hours, every single song, we all knew all the words to every single one of them.
Yeah,
Even songs I'd forgotten he wrote. Like,
Right.
I'm still standing better than I ever did. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, that's Elton John did. Every single one of those songs.
he was so tapped into what people were wanting to hear.
in
It's
such an
remarkable.
interesting way.
Yeah,
Saturday, Saturday, Saturday.
Now, what was the one we had to learn in grade school? We had an old Mr. Booth. Did you ever know Mr. Booth, the music teacher at Northside? He was probably like 100 years old when I was like 6, but he could only let us clap like this. And there was some Elton John, Crocodile Rock, and we would have to learn like the beat. Like, no, we're 6-year-old kids wanting to get into it. He's like, no, everybody use 2 fingers. And you're like, God, we can't even hear ourselves, let alone anybody else, But it was old man. He would still wear a suit. He would teach, first grade music. He'd have like once a
Wow.
week. And for some reason, Crocodile Rock was the song. we played.
Remember when life was young. Me and Susie had so much fun.
oh my God.
Our little baby hands all slapping the 2 fingers together.
Classic.
That's weird.
So do you
don't
have a
know.
song for us for your?
Well, did we finish with the Robin?
Well,
Any other?
There's lots of things I haven't said about him, but I don't know that he's so well known. He's Lucia's favorite bird.
That's fine.
important.
Is there
there
a
is one-
fact that people probably don't know about the Robin that you found interesting in your research?
What did I find the most interesting today as I read the new stuff? Well, just the fact that they're all across the country, it's the same species. All these others there seems to be in the California, there might be a subspecies, but all the others are pretty much exactly alike all the way across the country. Now they do migrate in large, well,
How far do they migrate?
I don't know. It didn't give any say. They go south until they're comfortable. So they fly, they flock up, and then you'll see, like in the springtime, you'll see a flock of robins come through. and that's one of your first signs of spring. Well, those robins aren't coming to see you. They're going to Maine. They're just stopping, they're the first ones back up through there. So
That's fascinating. How does that happen?
yeah.
How does the flock?
Well, the flock is fascinating, and for the robins, you don't usually think of them as flock birds, but evidently, especially in the more northern, when they stay over in the north, at night they flock up and get in large groups and find a pine forest somewhere. And
Aren't there nests though scattered or?
yeah, but that's during the mating season. I'm talking about during the winter and when they're not doing that. When they're not, they all separate, but in certain times of year, when the families are all, formed, they flock up at night.
Isn't that amazing? Like, how do they get the word out? All right, we're all meeting.
Yeah, they all just know where they're going.
It's just amazing.
And,
Little Woodstock for them.
Right.
and it's all to protect them because they get in these large flocks. So if anything comes, like a hawk or something comes in, everybody knows about it. So they can disperse without getting caught.
It's fascinating.
But the main predator is the house cat.
Oh, really?
As you might, they do more damage than the other things. So.
Now, do any birds, like, isn't it geese that fly in, like, the triangle? Like, you see they'll come, they go up and they all form, like, that pattern. Do any other birds fly, like, in a pattern like that?
They find larger patterns, but they have an overall, what all of them are doing is taking advantage of we tend to think that the lead goose is the leader of the pack, but that's not true. They're all the same. They just take turns. What happens is that the lead one is catching all the headwind, so it has to be the strongest. So he'll go as long as he can, then when he gets tired, he'll just wind up and go to the back,
That is intense.
and another one moves up. So everybody takes a turn in the front, but that's the hardest job, because if you're behind, you're catching that updraft, so your wings are beating easier.
It's sort of like tailing a 18-wheeler on a road trip to get better gas mileage.
Exactly.
Like the French bike races and stuff. You
Right.
get behind somebody and just...
I like that image of the porpoises in front of the boats. They're just running ahead. There's obviously some aerodynamic reason that it feels good to them to do that. They're not just trying.
I'm flying.
Yeah.
But I've never seen, like, a bunch of robins, like, 30 robins flying together, any
Right.
bird.
No,
I wonder what formation they take in their flock.
well, if they probably don't. The flocks are so large, but within the flock, each of them's doing it separately. So it's not shaped like a V because there's so many of them, but all of them are trying to get behind somebody and use it, and then they find that somebody else is using them, and they move around.
It's amazing watching entire flocks of birds shift.
Oh,
It's like a
crazy.
single organism.
It is.
Exactly.
It's beautiful in
That's
the sky.
that's extraordinary
It's
to
so
watch.
extraordinary.
Yeah,
It's beautiful, the way they just...
yeah, and that's just blackbirds doing that usually.
Yeah.
So I guess all birds can do that on some level.
Amazing. Well, we've run quite over.
Okay.
I love it.
Do a
Part
song.
two next week.
To be continued.
Do a quick version of Rockin' Robin.
I think I'm gonna mix it up and do something a little bit different for the leaving song this time because I been working on a recording of a new song last night.
Oh,
A new
wow.
song, and I've been working on this track on the computer here, so it's still in the beginning stages. It's not a finished track, but
So this is the first time heard in public?
first time anybody's heard it.
I'm excited.
And I think I can trigger it right from my phone here if everything goes according to
Oh,
plan.
so you're not going to play it? You're just going to play
I'm
it
gonna
for
play
this?
the track
Oh, my
on the
gosh.
stereo.
Look at this, man. Y'all are getting 3D
I might have to
imaging.
delete this later because this is
3D
not
imaging
finished.
tonight. He played this on a guitar and 3D imaged it on his computer.
now nothing could surprise you, no, not anymore. So you tumble through the night until you pull the curtain tight, with the wide world right outside your door. Don't you know it's not right that they don't get to see your shining eyes? Though they close, you do not hide. We can see you, good morning rise. Ooh, ah, ah, dee, ooh, ah, 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 ooh, ah, ah, dee. When you think about the past, you crawl through the looking glass that is shattered and scattered on the floor. Who you trying to please down on your bloody knees? We need you to believe like before. Don't you know it's not right that they don't get to see your shining eyes? Though they close, you do not hide. We can see you, good morning rise. Ooh, ah, ah, dee, ooh, ah, 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 ooh, ah, ah, dee. You talk about shame like it's some lion you can't tame, like it's a flame you can't extinguish but won't burn. It's a shame you can't pretend to start over again, this time through. Just think, my friend, of all you've learned. Don't you know it's not right that they don't get to see your shining eyes? Though they closed, you do not hide. We can see you, good morning rise. Though they closed, you do not hide. We can see you, good morning rise. Ooh, ah, ah, dee, ooh, ah, 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 ooh, ah, ah, dee.
I like it.
Oh, thank you.
First
thank you.
time.
Yeah.
My heart was beating. You could probably hear my heart beating
Wow.
in the lapel mic there.
I like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
glad.
It sounded like birds flying, like there's that. Ooh, pop, pop, pop.
Well, I would like to say that we missed you, Kethra.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
And,
Safe
not
trip.
Not the same without you, and we want you back safely.
Happy anniversary.
And happy anniversary. Yep.
Yes. Love you. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Yep. Thanks for checking us out.
To be continued. Next week, tune in for part 2, part 29 of Jabber Jawn.
Next good rain, go catch a worm.
Yeah. Give you a quarter apiece.
Slow, remember slow. Pull the slow.
I never gave a quarter apiece. I don't want to.
Inflation.
Times have changed.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
what.
He's just like Trump. He wants the most money he can get for it.
Oh, let us count the ways. Nathan and Trump are the same. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we didn't stay on that long. I
Yeah,
thought
let's get out of there.
I could run a little.
Run!
That's what I was thinking too, man. It's gonna end up in a fist fight.
Yeah, this is not going to go well.
Yeah, I was wondering if we could start going.
Nathan's gonna leave us
At
sitting
least
here
a
by
little guilt
ourselves.
trip.